So it is time for the second race, Formula IC. On pole position, we have Rory for Red Leicester. Second place, Matt in the Neutrino. Third place is Kevin for the Dancing Donkeys. Fourth is Yui. Fifth and sixth are the two bridge cars of Tom D and Naifu. Seventh is Crystal. Eighth is Mia. Ninth is Stuart. And 10th is Alec, the Pentacorn. Further back, we have Alba, Keir, Greg, Jam, Callum, Izzy, Lee, Michael, Stephen, Max, Nathan, and Quinn rounds out the back of the grid for South Furia Racing. So, everyone's lined up on the grid. ready for those lights to come on. Can Rory take the win this time like he failed to do in Monaco? Or is it going to be Matt, Kevin? We'll see. And they are away. It's Rory who gets away well up front. Kevin getting past Matt up into second place. Poor start from Matt. He's down to maybe even as low as 5th. Tom D challenging on the outside. As Kevin has taken the lead. Kevin has taken the lead for the Dancing Donkey. Further back, Keir has gained 3 places for Ishtar Mac. Let's see how Kevin gained those places off the line. It looked like Rory had a good initial getaway. And indeed he does. He seems to pull away slightly at the start. But in the second phase of the start, Kevin has like amazing traction. Rory, they both run a little wide through 1. And then into 2, Kevin's much better on the brakes. He takes the lead of the race. So this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, the Dancing Donkey ever led a main Formula I event. Can he hold on to it? 23.5 laps to go, so it's going to be a big ask. Certainly this car is not the best car in the field. We would, under normal conditions, expect him to be under pressure from those behind. Further back then, Keir in the Ishtar Mac, up 3 places, ahead of both of the senior team drivers of Alba and Mac, who both had fairly poor qualifying. And Hisham has dropped to last, and he seems to have lost his whole front nose cone. Let's see how this happens. So, Michael goes for an overtake on him. Oh, and he flips over. That's not what you want to see. So let's see how... So Michael goes for an overtake. Doesn't look like he... Oh, he just runs Hisham out of road. As far as I can tell. Hisham on the outside. And it really doesn't look like he had anywhere to go there except onto the grass. And that's where he went. Upside down. Hisham will not be happy about this. Somehow that car is still going. Which is quite remarkable, to be honest. And indeed, he got back on the track ahead of Michael. The overtake actually didn't even work. So he, of course, as Max pushes Hisham off the track later, obviously Max not anticipating how slowly Hisham's going to go through the corner with no front nose. Hisham now will drop to the back. He will have to change that front. We'll have to get a new front nose and that's what. So we can imagine that Michael's going to be under investigation from the stewards for that. But over the line they go. To start lap 2, it is Kevin who leads. 4/10 ahead of Rory. Yui, 2 seconds back. And a further second back to Matt. Meanwhile, Mia is battling with Keir. And Keir goes around the outside and into 7th. As Crystal seems to have dropped out of contention. And Nathan in the Vanox has some kind of engine problem. And he's pulling off the track. And that's a technical problem from Crystal as well. So that's 2 technical problems very early in the race. Both of them barely completing a lap. Puncture for Crystal. Perhaps that was caused by running over some debris from one of the incidents we've seen. So I would have thought that she would have been ahead of all. Sham emerges from the pits. Well down at the back and a long way behind everyone. As Matt has gone off. That looks like a crash to me. He has gone into the wall, and he just... That is a strange one. That might be some kind of brake failure, to be honest, because you don't expect people to miss their braking point by that much. In any case, Matt is off the track and out of this race. There's no way he's getting that car back round to the pits. And Naifu has spun off, and there's a big pile up at the chicane. Stewart and Naifu stuck on the track. Naifu manages to get off, but they've lost lots of places. See how that happened. So, Keir going for a move down the inside. They take it. Ooh, and they make contact. That's a difficult one, to be honest, in terms of who's at fault. And Stewart just has his own act. So here is that again. And I think you could perhaps argue that Keir didn't leave Naifu enough room on the outside, though you could also say that Keir had the position as they were ahead at that point. It's definitely a difficult one. Meanwhile, Stewart goes off. He was under pressure from Greg, who was going up the inside. And there's no contact, he just goes off the road. I mean, there's contact after he goes off, but... And indeed, that hurts Greg a lot more than Stewart, who I don't think has even lost a place in all this. Callum goes through up into 8th as a result of that. And now Lee is trying to get past Alex. Doesn't work out that time. Further back we have Quinn, Michael, Max, and Naifu is, of course, or pretty much last after that incident. So Keir is still going, running up in 6th place. They'll be under investigation from the stewards. It'll be interesting to see what the results of that are going to be. Currently they are having a very strong race for Ishtar. And Kevin, after struggling to extend that gap in the first 2 laps, has now got over a second Rory. It's Kevin, followed by Rory, front. 3rd place still Yui. 4th place still Tom D in the bridge. And now Alba is up into 5th. So Alba, starting outside the top 10, is having a great start to this race. It'll be interesting to see whether some of the people that are having very good early phases here, like Kevin, Alba, Keir, have light fuel loads. So definitely expecting that to make a big difference here. Does everyone. You'd expect to be second a lap quicker if you had 5 laps less fuel. And that's about the difference in a 1 and a 2 stop strategy. Meanwhile, here's Alex battling with Stewart into the final sequence of corners. Izzy locks up her front wheel. That's not going to do any good to the tyres. Lee trying to pass on the outside, but there's no room there. Izzy holds on to 13th, but those tyres are not going to be in good shape anymore. And she'll need to be coming in for some new ones soon. Lee on the outside then. Across the start-finish line, into turn 1. Izzy manages to hold on. Is Lee going to have a go through the second corner? Doesn't seem so. And meanwhile, Alex is still trying to get past Stewart. And that is Naifu going off in the bridge. Naifu, who had that contact with Keir earlier on, dropped to the back, and their race just going from bad to worse. Naifu now down to 18th place out of 19 still running. It is Kevin who continues to lead by 1.6 seconds. A very good start to this race from Kevin. It's going to be interesting to see just how much fuel he has, isn't it? Because as Alex gets past Stewart in the Pentagon and now up into 11th place. His teammate Mia running in 7th currently, so a stronger showing from Pentagon than we saw from them in Monaco, where they were towards the back of the order. And Alex broke down, of course. Stewart trying to come back at Alex. It's not going to work. Alex covers him off. And as they start lap 5, Kevin continues to lead. Keir now trying to go past Alba. Up into 5th place. And they take the position. Keir now up into 5th. Next stop, the next target is going to be Tom D, whose pace isn't absolutely amazing by any means. He's 12 seconds, 13 seconds off Kevin after just 4 laps completed. So he's losing 4 seconds, 3 seconds a lap in that bridge. I would not be surprised if Tom D has a heavy one-stop fuel load. Might be going to like lap 13 or 14 in this race. Definitely watch out for him to come back later. Perhaps he's just struggling with the handling of that bridge car right now. Certainly he's struggling to defend against Keir. Alba and Mia joining the back of this train. Tom D trying to defend. This is where... Ooh. This is where Keir made contact with Tom D's teammate, of course. Keir's now going to try and go down the inside into the sharp corner that I don't know the name of, because I don't know the name of any of these corners. And Keir's up into 4th. Alba now trying to pass on the outside, but as we've seen before, fairly difficult to pass there. Through the final chicane then, Tom D down to 5th. And it looks like Alba and Mia are going to be coming through anytime soon. Alba round the outside into 5th place. Next up, Mia in the Pentacoron. Let's see where they can get past. Tom D losing so much time. Like, that lap he would have lost even more time than previous laps just because he was trying to defend his position. And that always costs you time. Sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it's better just to let someone through if they've got a much better car than you at this point in the race. As it seems, Tom D definitely doesn't have the pace right now. Here are the top 10 then. Kevin now leading by 2.4 seconds. We're expecting the first 2 stoppers. They're going to be coming in soon. So, be interesting to see who has fuel loads everyone started with. So it definitely seems like the pace of these cars are a bit different to what we saw in qualifying. Bridge struggling a bit, as Kevin and Rory both in. So, Rory had no more fuel than Kevin did. That is, for me, that's very surprising. Given how much pace we saw from Rory in qualifying, I would have thought they would have had a few more laps than Kevin. 6.1 second stop and Kevin has a slow stop and he has to wait for Rory. So Rory will retake the next net lead as Tom D has crashed out of the race. Let's see how that happens. Feeling I know exactly what's happened here. So Mia tries to get past. Oh, and Tom D just goes straight off the road. Pressured into a mistake by Mia. There was no actual contact. Tom D just outbrakes himself, gets on that curb. It's very slippery there. Once he's on the gravel, it's on a one-way trip to the barrier. Very unfortunate for Tom D. Of course, he had a disappointing race where he very much was a lot slower than his teammate Naifu in Monaco. He looked a bit better here, but it's not going to be a good result. He will be 19th. Callum comes out the pits then, in 15th place. So Callum did not have a lot of fuel on board. Max running a bit wide. He's up to... I would be surprised if Max doesn't have at least 10 laps of fuel, probably more. Just because, like, he's clearly much slower than his teammate Alba. And you'd expect him to be closer than that. But meanwhile, here is Alba. 2nd place in this race. Mia in 3rd. Yet to stop, of course. Rory is 1st of those that have stopped. And Kevin now being passed by Greg. But Kevin's really not having a great time on this set of tyres. Kevin had amazing pace in the early stages, but right now, it's not looking good, is it? He's dropped well off Rory, who he lost out to in those pit stops, as Alba and Mia come into the pits. Let's see how quick a stop those two can do. 7.7 from Alba, 7.1 from Mia. quick enough from Mia to overtake. As Callum is in the gravel. Was there contact? Callum was racing Izzy. Tries to go down the inside. Oh, and they hit each other. Oh, that was an over-ambitious move from Callum, and that has put Izzy out of the race. Let's see exactly how that happened. Callum definitely wasn't remotely far enough alongside to justify going for a dive bomb. I don't think there. I don't think Izzy would have been expecting him to try and come through. And that is a nasty impact with the barrier there for Izzy. She is out of this race. Let's see this from Callum's perspective. I think that's probably going to be a penalty for Callum. I don't think there was any way that move was going to end any way other than what it did. Definitely wasn't close enough to justify going for that one. He's lost a lot of time, but Izzy comes off much worse. She is out of the race. Quinn and Mia are battling. Mia's just come out the pits on cold tyres. Quinn in the South Fury are racing. Don't know whether they've pitted yet. I don't think so. Quinn started last in this race, of course. As Greg and Kevin are continuing to battle. I think Kevin might have just gone off. They seem to be going slowly into this corner, which is one of the more difficult ones on the track. It's double apex. Oh, and he loses it. Luckily, he doesn't quite spin the car all the way around. That's going to cost him a few seconds. A few critical seconds in his battle with Rory. And don't count Yui out of this race yet either. Yui leads by 14 seconds. Yui might be Yui might be one stopping. We don't know how much fuel Yui's got on board. But if Yui is one stop, then Rory has to close up that 14-second gap using the fresh tires he's got now. I'm not sure he's going to do that. His pace isn't that much better. Long way to go, though. Steven comes in. Probably a two-stop strategy. Be a long way to go to do the 15 laps to go from here to the end. Though if we see him put a lot of fuel on board, if this is a long stop, that might be an indicator that he's going all the way to the end. 5.5. That's definitely a two-stop fuel load. Steven comes out the pits in 9th position, just ahead of Mia. So, terrible qualifying, Steven. He's doing a decent recovery. And I think right now, he really has to put in some incredible lap time, catch up to the cars in front, and really get the most out of that car. Because that Think Again car definitely should be contending for race wins. Meanwhile, here is the battle for 6th place. Max, Lee, and Alba. Alba has made her pit stop. Max has not. Max is presumably one stopping. If you're Frozen Light, I feel like once Alba gets past Lee, you try to just give team orders. You would say to Max before the race. As Mia has spun off, they were having a decent race. That's unfortunate for them. Gets on the grass, just loses control. Very similar to what Kevin did. Indeed, it is the same corner. As I was saying, if I was Frozen Light, I would, if I was Max, I would let Alba through once she closes up, because she's on much fresher tyres. There's the contact between Lee and Max. They're lucky to get away with that. Both of them keep going. Lee now trying to come down the inside. Does Max have some kind of problem? Max clearly going slowly. That was a very easy pass for Lee. Alba now going through, it looks like, or not. Steven trying to come down the inside. And Max coming into the pits. So that might be some kind of problem, as Keir is out with a water leak. That is a disaster for Keir. They were having a very good race, but they were under investigation by the steward. As we hear from the stewards, that Michael has been given a 10-second penalty for that incident with Hisham earlier on in this race. Max, he only made it to 10. That might have been because of a technical problem. He did look like he was going slowly. Comes out the pits ahead of Mia. Perhaps he's fueled to the end. The race continues then. Yui is holding the gap stable to Rory. Rory unable to close in. The gap is 14.6 seconds. And with Yui going impressively far on this tank of fuel, 10 laps in, is that going to be two-stop strategy? Or will she fuel to the end from 14 laps? That is a long way, but it's not impossibly far. Oh, and they're struggling to get that front tyre on. Definitely compromised her pit stop. 9.4 seconds. We'll see whether she can go to the end. Rory leads then. Yui in second. And Yui does come out of the pits ahead of Kevin. Kevin's issues on this set of tyres, it seems, have cost him second place to Yui. And now, of course, he will also have to make a second pit stop. Of course, Yui's car is going to be very heavy on fuel right now. So she is going to probably be much slower. The tyres aren't up to temperature yet either. This might be the chance for Kevin to attack. And the issue Yui's going to have as well is that her tyres are going to be absolutely destroyed by the end of the race. Especially if she spends a lot of life of the tyre trying to defend this position. And if I was Yui, I'm not sure I would, but Yui's a very aggressive driver. Doesn't let anyone through for any reason, unless she has to. And I don't think Yui's going to be letting this one go without a fight. The gap to Rory is 9.6 seconds. Rory still has to pit. The fascinating thing will be, can Rory come back at Yui in the closing stages of this race with fresh tyres after he makes his pit stop? As Kevin goes down the inside of Yui, there's contact! And they're both out of the race. That's a horrible accident. Both Yui and Kevin out of this race. Oh, and that is a disaster for both of them. Let's see what happened there. Kevin going down the inside. He was, unlike Callum, he was most of the way alongside at the point of the corner. I think he just broke him just a little bit. Misses the apex, and I don't think Yui had anywhere to go. Did Yui have a bit of space on the outside? That is I think Yui did have space to go further. I'm reluctant to call that one. Hopefully both drivers are okay, because that is a very violent impact. Both of them are out of this race. And that surely then leaves an easy path to victory for Rory. Both of his main contenders for the race win, they're out of it. As Rory has gone off, just as I say, just like in Monaco, just as it looks like he has it in the bag, he loses it on the way into turn 2 and hits the outside wall. And now Rory is out of this race. So, in the space of a minute, 3 drivers that we thought were going to be on the podium here, they're all out. And who does that leave in the lead of this race? It's Alba for Frozen Light, followed by Stephen, who started in 19th position. 3rd is Greg, our defending champion. 4th is Michael. So this throws the race wide open. I think all of these 3 have to stop again. Not sure about Michael. They've all made their stops. Oh, Michael definitely has to stop again. He hasn't stopped even once yet. Neither has Naifu. Naifu, of course, dropping back in that early incident. I'm pretty sure they would be leading if it wasn't Kier early on. So it's Greg challenging Stephen for second. Trying to go down the inside into the first chicane. Second chicane. This track has a lot of chicanes, okay? Alba beginning to extend a bit of a gap from Stephen. It looks like, though, of course, Stephen has his mirrors occupied by Greg. And that does tend to slow you down a bit when you're having to spend some of your focus on what's going on behind you. So it looks like Greg has fallen off the back of Stephen a bit. Does he have a technical problem? He's going very slowly down the straight. Meanwhile, Michael comes into the pits from 5th place. And he will drop out of the top 10. Difficult race for Afonier. Like they were so hopeful that their new car would take them back to the top of Formula I. Like when they won the this is the team that's won the team's championship the most time. Season 2, Season 4, and Season 6. It's been a while since they last won a race, and well, it's probably not going to be happening here. Michael running in 12th place. Alba continues to lead then. This race really has been thrown wide open. Naifu and Stewart still running on the fuel and tyres they started with. How much further could they possibly be going? They're already past half distance at this point. Alba leading by about a second ahead of Steven. Who's about a further second ahead of Greg. Either one of these three could win this race. Or, you know, maybe they'll crash into the wall like the last three that we thought had a chance of winning this race did. But you gotta think that the race is between these three at this point. Stewart comes into the pits. Finally, the end of lap 13. Naifu still going. Decent stop from Stewart, 6.6 seconds. He'll drop back to second last of the 13 that are still running in this race. So it's Alba who leads, just under a second to Steve. Greg, half a second behind Steven. And definitely looking a lot closer now. There's not even a car length between them. Greg's in the slipstream, falls out to the outside. Can't get him into that chicane. Next up is the corner where we've seen overtakes go wrong so many times. Between Yui and Kevin, most notably. Greg knows better than to try and attack into there. I think his best bet will be down the start-finish straight and into turn 1 or 2. Let's see if he can do it. In the slipstream, closing up. Doesn't go for it yet. Naifu's into the pits from 4th place. Down the inside, into turn 2. And Greg has taken second from Steven. Meanwhile, Naifu pitting. They will go to the end from here. 7.1 seconds. Not an amazing stop, but not terrible either. They'll drop back behind quite a few cars, but I think most of them will have to stop again. Max definitely doesn't. I don't know about Mia. Don't know. I think Lee has to stop again. And I think Callum does as well. But I don't actually remember with the two Racing Disappoint. Alba leading. But Greg has closed that gap down to less than a second. And you got to think that Greg is looking like the fastest one of these three right now. The two championship rivals from last season are battling again here at Pasagada. Greg has got that gap down to 7:10. He's got a safe gap. Steven at this point. And Greg comes in for his second pit stop. So perhaps the reason he had a bit more pace, because he had less fuel than the other two? We'll see. We'll also see whether he can use the fresh tyres he's putting on now to undercut Alba. And that's what he'll need to do. 5.7 stop. That's a very quick pit stop for Greg. Hey. 15 minutes? Thanks. So Greg is down to 4th place behind Alex. I'm pretty sure Alex has to stop again. And Greg will now have to try and set the fastest lap times he absolutely can to try and get past Alba when Alba makes her pit. And that means not being held up by Alex. Like, Greg has to get past Alex quickly as possible. Meanwhile, here at the front two, Alba leading Steven now by almost 2 seconds. Steven's definitely not out of this. Especially if Steven has a bit more fuel on board than Alba. We'll see whether either of them are coming in this lap. Meanwhile, Greg has closed right up on Alex, but this is a very difficult section to overtake in. You need to be within about 20 seconds to get past someone in the pit stops. Greg goes to the inside. Contact is made, and they're both spinning. And that is a disaster for Greg as Alba comes into the pits. And that's going to lose Greg loads of time, and any chance of winning this race is over, surely. Greg just getting a bit desperate, trying to get past Alex. Brakes a bit too late for the chicane. And Alex really has nowhere to go. Neither of them seem to have any kind of damage, though we'll see when they get running. But... oh, and Alex struggling to get back on the track there. Greg on the grass, spinning round. Gets it back going again, but he's down in 9th. I think that 10th. And what could have been a race win, his second race win of his career, it's definitely not turned out that way. So Alba has made her pit stop. And now she is definitely under a lot less pressure than Greg was. He was ahead of Steven anyway before the pit stop. And anything she can do to reduce that gap to Steven just makes things even easier for her as this race goes on. Remember, Steven started in this race in 19th place. And this has been an incredible recovery from him. If he can win from that low on the grid, I don't remember the last time someone won from 19th on the grid in Formula I. I seem to remember Lyra doing that in Season 5, but it's been a long time. It's not generally something we see. It would be incredible if Steven could do that today. As he continues, is Steven potentially fueled to the end? I don't think so. He pitted early and had a very quick pit. It was reasonable to assume that he didn't have much fuel on. The gap from him to Alba, 18 seconds. His pace has also been far too quick for someone not planning on making another pit stop. He'll pit at the end of this lap, we think. Surely. And he'll have 6 laps on those fresh tyres to try and attack Alba. Third place in this race is Lee. Don't know if they have to stop. Pretty sure they... I'm actually leaning towards, like, at this point they might not have... As Michael goes off in the F1, loses out to Naifu. Naifu was on much fresher tyres than the cars in front. I'm expecting them to challenge Max if Max can't get past Lee. And Max is definitely trying to do that as quickly as possible. You can't risk a collision when Frozen Light are on for a very good result as a team here. Potentially both cars on the podium. Max definitely is going to the end. Actually, I'm not completely sure of that, but it's likely that Max is going to the end on this set of tyres. And Steven comes into the pits. So he will surely out behind Alba. But how far? And is he going to be close enough to challenge at the end? Alba definitely the favourite here, as Lee goes off the track, stays on, still ahead of Max. And Naifu's trying to come through on the inside too. But it is Max who, outbrakes himself trying to get past Lee, and he's spun out. Oh, that's a big mistake from Max. He'll be regretting that one. Just brakes a bit too late, gets on that curb like we've seen a few others do. And then he just slides wide and into the gravel. Lee holds on to third place. Steven comes out the pits. and he is behind Alba, as expected. Naifu now trying to go past Lee. Naifu, of course, won in Monaco and is our championship leader. Michael behind the two of them, and as Lee goes off, they outbrake themselves, and they're into the barrier. That's the same place that Rory went off the track in an almost identical accident, and Lee is out of the race for Racing Disappointment. So we're not going to have many finishers this race, are we? I think we're down to 12 at this point. We had 10 in Monaco, but of course that was a much longer race. This track proving very difficult for the drivers. Stephen is 4.6 seconds behind Alba. Let's see how quickly he's closing that gap down. He takes 3/10 out of Alba in the middle sector. I'm not sure that's going to be enough to catch up in 5 laps, but we'll see. There's definitely time for Stephen to make something happen. But he's not going to have much time to do it at the end as Alba's gone off. Alba's made a mistake. That's the same place that Max went off, I think. And Stephen has taken the lead. And that definitely makes Stephen's life a lot easier, because now he should be able to pull away from Alba on those fresh tyres. So Stephen, with that critical error from Alba, now leads this race with 5 laps to go. Can Stephen do the incredible and win this race from 19th on the grid? Once again, just like in Monaco, all of the main contenders just dropping out, and we're left with a very strange result. Michael, for Affoniere, he's now up into 4th position with everyone's mistake. So things are looking a little better for that team than they were earlier on in this. He's kept it on the track, not made any mistakes. Of course, he has been given a penalty for that incident with Hisham, so he's actually down in 7th right now, if you add 10 seconds onto his time. But it's very close between the 2 Pentacorons and him in terms of that 10-second gap. And the 2 Pentacorons, given that they're battling each other, you've got to think that Michael will be able to pull out that 10-second margin that he needs. And indeed, it seems that he has. So Mia trying to pass Alex for 6th place. Further back, we have Callum and Greg fighting for position. Greg, of course, dropping way back after that incident with Alex. These are the closest battles we have on the track right now. Is Mia going to go for it against their teammate? I've seen a lot of incidents into that corner. They think better of it. Very sensibly so. I think the Pentacoron team management will definitely just want to bring these 2 cars home in these positions right now. They don't want to risk a crash. And Callum and Greg have crashed. Yet another incident between 2 drivers here. Greg, well, that's pretty much the same as what Callum did to Izzy, except he was a bit further alongside. Did Callum turn in on Greg? Well, hard to say, isn't it? Like, Greg only had 1 wheel alongside. And who knows whether Greg would have made the corner even if Callum had left space. They're both stuck in the gravel now. We'll see whether they can get back out of it. They're definitely not finding it easy to, as Michael has passed Naifu. Naifu seems to have gone off the track, it seems. That is at turn 2. We've already seen Lee and Rory go off there. Fortunately, Naifu keeps it out of the wall, only loses 1 place. But they're not far ahead of Mac. So Stephen leads 2.5 seconds ahead of Alba. The gap to Michael, fairly huge, 23 seconds. And at this point, it really feels like Stephen is the only one out there that hasn't made a mistake. Sometimes that's all you need to do to win. Keep it on the track when everyone else goes off around you. There's 12 cars still running in this race. Hisham remaining last after that nasty incident with Michael early on. It seems like Michael is only going to lose 2 places. Well, it's still very close between him and the 2 Pentacorons, actually, with that 10-second penalty. It would definitely help Pentacoron's cause if they stopped racing each other so hard. Alex going defensive against Mia into the chicane. No contact, thankfully, but they're definitely costing each other a lot of time. They won't know about Michael's penalty, and that isn't in the information that the team are allowed to convey on the radio. So they just have to race as hard as they can, not knowing that Michael ahead of them is potentially in range of being caught if they stopped battling each other so hard. Meanwhile, Max passes Naifu into turn 2. Naifu seems to be struggling a bit after going off the track there last lap, taking it a lot more cautiously this time. That gives an opening for Max to come through. Steven now leads by 3.4 seconds. If you look at the top 4, almost, like, of the top 4 drivers, 3 of them started outside of the top 15 on the grid. Steven starting 19th, Michael starting 18th, and Max starting 20th. And they all started outside the top 10 on the grid. So all of the top drivers in this race having issues, making mistakes. Of course, we've seen that a lot in the times we've raced here in the past. The Season 3 race here, which was Fast India's first ever win. Of course, that team became Racing Disappoint. That race was absolute chaos and was decided by an overtake on the last lap of the race. Meanwhile, Alba lapping Hisham. Hisham having a very disappointing day, but he's still going after that incident on lap 1. Seems like the 2 Pentacorons aren't going to be able to be within 10 seconds of Michael. So it looks like Michael's going to be finishing 5th in this race. And that would mean double podium for Frozen Light if they can keep it going for these final 2 laps, which is easier said than done around here. Alba running in 2nd, Max running in 3rd. Steven is out front, nearly 5 seconds ahead. Both Steven and Alba running 2-stop strategies. Seems like the 2 strategies are quite evenly balanced around here. I think it's hard to say whether it's better to 2 or 1 stop. But working out quite well for Steven and Alba. You've got to think that if they had have been doing 1 stop, they would have still been 1st and 2nd, just with the sheer amount of pace that they've had. And also the fact that all of their rivals crashed. That helps too. Michael running in 3rd for now. Still got that penalty, of course. And the 2 Pentacorons continuing to battle for 6th. But it seems like Alex has pulled away from Mia just a little. Further back, Stewart still running in the other Red Leicester. His teammate out of the race, of course, from a comfortable lead, as he also did in Monaco. 9th place is Quinn. Very good race for South Furia Racing. 10th, Callum in the Racing Disappoint. And the stewards have also given Callum a 10-second penalty for his incident with Izzy. So that will drop him behind Greg. So, as they go around the final lap, Steven is half a lap away from an amazing win from right towards the back of the grid for Think Again. And after a difficult end to last season, after retiring from the first race of the season, Steven will be happy to be back at the top. He's got a 6-second gap, Alba. He can practically coast it round the final segment of the lap. And indeed, doesn't seem to really be pushing. And that's all that matters. No mistakes from Steven then. And that is what will get him to another Formula I win, his first of the season, here in Pasagada. In 2nd place, for Frozen Light, Alba. 3rd will be Michael in the Affoniere for now, but he will have a 10-second penalty that will probably drop him back to 5th. Actually 3rd then for a double podium for Frozen Light, it's looking like it will be Max. His first podium for that team, and his second podium in Formula I. 5th place, Naifu in the bridge. Great recovery after that early collision with Keir. 6th will be Alex. 7th will be Mia. 8th place will be Stuart. 9th, great result for Quinn for South Furia Racing. 10th is Callum, but has a penalty, so 10th will actually be Greg. And Hisham, a lap down in 12th. But it is an incredible drive from Stephen from the back of the grid to win 5 seconds here in Pasargada. Thank you all for watching. This has been Formula I. We'll be back next week.